She stood outside our porch, holding a clipboard like it was a weapon, lips tight, sunglasses on, pointing at my wife like we were criminals. "You can't live here without joining our HOA," she snapped. "It's the rule now. You signed nothing, but I'm the president and I'm making this official." My wife looked at her calmly, belly showing, 7 months pregnant, holding her cup of chamomile tea like it was just another Tuesday. I could see the vein twitching on Karen's neck when my wife said, "We're not interested." Karen's eyes lit up like she'd been challenged. She stormed off, muttering, "We'll see about that." 20 minutes later, we heard sirens. I stepped outside to find 2 cop cars pulling up fast, lights flashing, tires screeching. Karen was already in the driveway, flailing her arms like a toddler throwing a tantrum. "That's her," she screamed. "She's refusing to follow community rules." "That's a violation." The officer stepped out, serious face, badge shining. But then something shifted. His eyes landed on my wife. He blinked. His posture straightened. Then the second cop got out, looked over, and said quietly, "Ma'am?" My wife nodded, and both cops saluted her. Karen's jaw hit the ground. I swear it was like time froze. The birds stopped chirping. Even the wind paused to listen. Karen stuttered, What's going on? Why are you saluting her? She's defying HOA law." The taller officer turned toward Karen, not smiling. "Ma'am, do you even know who you're speaking to?" He pointed at my wife with respect in his voice. "That woman commanded 3 joint tactical rescue operations overseas. She's a decorated special ops leader. You don't order her around." Karen took a step back, face turning white. My wife just sipped her tea again and said softly, "Next time, don't abuse authority you don't have." But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Karen didn't speak for a full 5 seconds, which, for her, was probably a personal record. Then she exploded. "That's impossible. She's lying. She can't be anyone important. She lives next to me." Her voice cracked with disbelief, but her eyes, they were filled with something uglier than confusion. It was fear. The kind people get when they realize they picked the wrong fight. The officers didn't entertain her tantrum. One of them calmly walked up to me and said, "Sir, we're sorry for the disturbance. This neighborhood is not under any official HOA enforcement structure. If she contacts you again or tries to impersonate an authority figure, you can press charges." Karen gasped like someone had slapped her. "I am the HOA president. I made the forms myself. I sent them to all the houses." "You mean fake HOA notices?" The other officer cut in. "That's impersonation. It's a criminal offense." Suddenly, Karen wasn't so loud anymore. But then she snapped again, clutching at anything to save face. "You don't understand. These people don't mow their lawn on Tuesdays. They park too many cars. They have wind chimes that violate noise expectations." The officer turned, already walking back to his patrol car. "Ma'am, none of that is illegal." My wife stepped down the porch slowly, belly first, calm like a storm that knew it didn't need to thunder. "Karen," she said, voice low and clear, "you messed with the wrong family." Karen scoffed. "You think this is over? You embarrassed me in front of law enforcement. I run this block. You'll regret this." My wife smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was that kind of smile you give when you know what's coming next. "We'll see," she said. Karen walked off, red in the face, muttering threats under her breath. But she had no idea we had every single thing recorded, audio, video, even copies of the fake HOA letters. She hand-delivered, pretending they were official government papers. She had no clue that the next time cops showed up, it wouldn't be for us. The next morning, I walked out to grab the paper and noticed Karen's SUV parked halfway on our curb, and again, she deliberately left the engine running, windows cracked, country music blasting loud enough to rattle the glass. A petty move, but we were used to it. What she didn't know was that our front door camera had captured everything from yesterday, including her screaming that she made up the HOA rules. Inside, my wife sat at the kitchen table, sipping tea, scrolling through her phone. "Guess who just followed me on Facebook?" she said without looking up. I raised an eyebrow. "Karen's husband." We both laughed, but it was the kind of laugh you do when you're holding back fire. Because what Karen really didn't know was that my wife hadn't just served in special ops. She now worked in a civilian federal unit that dealt with neighborhood fraud, impersonation, and housing scams. By noon, a quiet black SUV rolled up in front of our house. 2 plainclothes federal agents stepped out, both familiar faces. My wife walked out to greet them like old friends. They shook hands, exchanged smiles, and she handed them a small USB stick. Karen was watering her roses next door, watching everything like a hawk. She waved sarcastically toward the SUV. "More family visiting?" she shouted. "Tell them to park properly this time." One of the agents looked at her confused. My wife didn't even turn around. She just said, "They're here for you." Karen laughed. "Oh, honey, that's cute." 10 minutes later, we watched from the living room window as they knocked on Karen's door. She opened it, confused at first, then startled when they showed her a folder. Her face dropped. They stepped inside. No yelling, no drama, just a quiet walk-in. 15 minutes later, she came out, red-faced and trembling. She wasn't in handcuffs, yet, but the agents didn't look pleased. They confiscated a small box from her hands, probably the fake HOA letters she'd printed. And just when we thought that was the peak, she walked across our lawn and uninvited him and shouted, "You think this is funny? You're ruining everything. I built this neighborhood." My wife stood on the porch, calm as ever. "No, Karen, you built a lie. We're just the ones tearing it down." But Karen wasn't done. Her pride was too loud, and the next thing she did, it crossed every line. That evening, just as the sun dipped behind the trees, we heard a loud clang from the side of the house. I rushed outside, and what I saw made my blood boil. Karen, with a crowbar in hand, standing near our electric meter box. "You can't have power if you don't follow HOA regulations," she screamed, prying at the side panel. "No HOA means no privileges." I didn't say a word. I just pulled out my phone and hit record. "You're trespassing," I said flatly, "and vandalizing private property." Karen whipped around. "Oh, please. I'm enforcing community standards. You freeloaders think you can move in and ignore the rules." My wife stepped outside behind me, arms crossed, calm as ice. "Karen," she said softly, "drop the crowbar before you really destroy your life." But Karen had snapped. "You think you're untouchable? With your fake salutes and military stories, please. You're just another neighbor with a loud mouth." My wife didn't flinch. She just turned slightly and pointed to the security camera above the garage, its red light blinking. Karen froze. Then a voice echoed from across the street. "Mr. Dawson," the retired Marine who'd lived here longer than anyone. He shouted, "We saw everything, Karen. This is the third time you've tried this nonsense." Within minutes, 3 more neighbors walked out of their homes, phones in hand, filming. Karen looked around, realizing for the first time, no one was on her side anymore. I walked closer, phone still recording. "You're done, Karen." But then she did the unthinkable. She turned to my wife, my pregnant wife, and screamed, "Maybe I should call CPS. You think they'd let a violent woman like you raise a baby in this kind of environment?" Silence. My heart dropped. My wife didn't move. Then slowly she stepped off the porch and walked straight up to Karen and whispered, "You just made a federal threat against my family. On camera. While holding a weapon. On private land." Karen's face went pale. And that's when we heard it, distant sirens again. But this time we hadn't called them, someone else had. The sirens grew louder, closer, echoing through the neighborhood like justice arriving on cue. Karen turned slowly, crowbar still in her hand, eyes darting like a trapped animal. 2 patrol cars rolled up, followed by the same unmarked SUV from earlier. This time they weren't here for a chat. The first officer out was the tall one from yesterday, Officer Harris. He looked at Karen like he already knew the whole story. "Drop the tool, ma'am," he said firmly, "now." Karen hesitated, then let the crowbar fall with a dull thunk on the pavement. Her voice cracked, desperate now. "This is a mistake." I was defending the community. "They're dangerous. She threatened me first." The second officer stepped forward. "We've reviewed the footage. Every neighbor's doorbell cam confirms your actions. Trespassing, vandalism, impersonation, harassment, and now, a verbal threat against a pregnant woman. You're under arrest." They read her rights as they cuffed her. Karen wailed, twisting in place like it would undo everything. "This is my neighborhood. I started the HOA. I created this system." Officer Harris didn't even blink. "You created a scam, and now you're facing charges for it." As they escorted her to the cruiser, her screams turned into rambling excuses. They didn't cut their grass. "Their wind chimes kept me up. They parked on the street." But no one cared anymore. Her power was gone. Her empire of fake rules had collapsed in front of everyone. Neighbors stood on their porches watching silently. some filming, some shaking their heads. A few even clapped. And then from across the street, Mrs. Caldwell, the sweet widow who'd lived here for 40 years, and called out, "It's about time someone stood up to her." I looked at my wife. She looked calm, but her eyes were misty. Not with fear, with relief. Karen had been terrorizing this block for months, maybe years. But all it took was one woman, steady, silent and strong, to put her in her place. And just when I thought this moment was over, the plainclothes agent stepped toward me, leaned in and said, "This isn't just about Karen, there's more. Her scam goes deeper. Show a fraud ring. You two might have just cracked something much bigger." I stared at him. "Wait, what do you mean fraud ring?" The agent pulled out a folded sheet of paper and handed it to me quietly. "We've been tracking a cluster of fake HOA operations across multiple states. Someone's been organizing locals to create illegal neighborhood authority groups, forging documents, collecting fake dues, and forcing property sales through harassment. Karen's name came up in a flag transfer 2 months ago. I looked at the document and it showed a wire transfer to an account, registered under a shell company. Address, our neighborhood." My wife stepped beside me, reading over my shoulder. Her face didn't change. She was already connecting dots in her mind. She wasn't acting alone, she said. She was following instructions. The agent nodded. "Exactly. And now that she's under arrest, she might talk. You just lit the fuse." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A neighbor had just sent a screenshot. It was a private Facebook group. Karen's group. Title: Restore Order, HOA Enforcers of Unity Lane. Over a dozen members, many with our street names. Photos of our yard, cars, trash bins, even notes judging what time lights were turned off. My wife clenched her jaw. "She had a surveillance list?" "She was building a case to push us out," I said quietly. The agent looked dead serious. "You've exposed more than harassment. This is coordinated property fraud, and now that it's public, they're going to panic." That night we stayed up. Not from fear, but from preparation. We backed up footage, made copies of every letter Karen ever dropped in our mailbox, printed out posts from the Facebook group. My wife pulled out her old encrypted laptop, the one she hadn't touched since leaving the agency, and set it on the table. "You think they're scared now?" she said, typing fast. "Wait till they realize I still have access to government records on neighborhood, zoning and ownership transfers." I smiled. "You planning to expose them all?" She looked up, calm and ready. "No, I'm going to bury them. Legally. Because now it wasn't just about Karen. This was bigger, and we were just getting started." By the next morning, things moved fast, and too fast. Half the neighborhood was buzzing. Some homes had HOA proud signs in their windows, which I'd never noticed before. It wasn't just Karen. She was part of something far more organized. And now the rest of them were scared they'd be next. Then came the knock. 2 men in suits, not agents, not cops, claimed to be from a community compliance coalition. One held a thick binder, the other had a clipboard. "We'd like to speak with the homeowner about zoning infractions and unauthorized residency," one said, trying to sound official. My wife opened the door, but this time she wasn't holding tea. She was holding a folder marked Federal Housing Act Compliance Report, and behind her stood one of the federal agents from earlier, arms crossed. "Step off my property," she said. "This residence is federally protected under the Military Housing Protection Clause due to my active national service. You're impersonating a zoning authority, which is a felony. Would you like to continue?" The 2 men froze. The agent stepped forward. "We already have your vehicle plates. I suggest you leave before this turns into an obstruction investigation." They left without another word. 10 minutes later, another alert came through on our neighborhood app, a mass message claiming, "A dangerous couple is targeting our peaceful HOA community with military intimidation." Karen might have been gone, but someone else was clearly running the show now. That's when we decided to go nuclear. My wife contacted her old command, not for backup, but for records. Property records, local government signatures, zoning boards, and digital trails. Everything. Within hours, she uncovered forged documents tied to 4 other families who'd mysteriously moved out under pressure. Fake fines, false code violations, and every one of them traced back to the same source, a company registered under Karen's sister's name. It was bigger than personal. It was organized eviction by manipulation. That night, we sat on our porch watching the neighborhood grow quiet again. And then my wife said something I'll never forget. They wanted power. I wanted peace, but now they'll get neither. Because the next morning, we released everything. We uploaded the full evidence package at 8:03 a.m. sharp. A 32-page PDF file with screenshots of Karen's fake notices, footage of her trespassing, audio of her threatening my pregnant wife, and the documents tracing back to the fake HOA network. Attached were copies of zoning reports, federal housing protections, bank records, and even a map showing every house involved in the scam. My wife didn't post it anonymously. She used her full name and credentials. Title: The Truth About Unity Lane HOA. A warning to every homeowner in America. Within an hour, it went viral in 3 local Facebook groups. By noon, it was trending on Nextdoor, and by the time evening came, the county's official zoning office released a public statement. No official HOA exists or has ever been registered for Unity Lane. Any enforcement claims are illegal and will be prosecuted. That same night, we watched from our living room as police showed up at 2 more houses. Quiet arrests. No sirens. Karen's sister was one of them. So was the guy who'd knocked on our door with the fake binder. Neighbors who had once peeked at us through curtains were now dropping by, apologizing, thanking us, some even crying. One woman admitted she paid over $4 in fake community fees because she was told she'd lose her house otherwise. Another confessed she'd been pressured into silence after Karen threatened her kids would face safety violations if she spoke up. My wife just listened and nodded. She didn't need praise. She wanted justice, and she got it. A week later, we received a letter in the mail, real, this time from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, thanking us for exposing one of the largest local HOA fraud networks in the region. They'd opened a formal investigation nationwide. We framed that letter and hung it in our hallway. But the best moment came quietly, the next Sunday morning. I was trimming the hedges when a sheriff's patrol car passed by. It slowed. The deputy rolled down his window, looked at my wife who was watering the flowers, and smiled. "Ma'am," he said with respect, "thank you for your service." She nodded politely, but then he added something I'll never forget. "You didn't just fight for your country, you saved this street." And in that moment, with sunlight on our porch, peace in our yard, and freedom in the air, I knew the war was over. We didn't just win, we ended the tyranny of fake power. For good. The end. Subscribe my YouTube channel for more stories.